Hey guys, welcome back. It's me, Gimpy. I'm here with the Naval turn of the Doolittle raid, Enemy Coast Ahead by GMT. Previous video was the one that was on the planning phase. If you haven't watched that, go check it out. It is a walkthrough, talk-through series on that part of the game. This one's going to be just concerning the naval segment itself and how that works. All right. I'm going to do this one a little different than I did the planning phase. I decided that I'm going to do a quick overview of how this section of the game is done, the quick gist of the rules. That way, if you're just wanting to kind of know the rules, know how you play through this section, you can watch the first part of the video and then, leave it at that. At that point, I'll do the actual playthrough of the video of this section itself, and I'll still talk through it at that point, the rules and what I'm doing and all that. But that way, when I do the talk through of the rules at the beginning, I can zoom in on certain parts of the map to let you guys see it up close, and I won't have to do that each time I'm doing something specific in the actual playthrough of it. Okay. First thing I want to touch on is a couple things that were part of the planning phase that I didn't show because they were associated with other parts of the map. One of the things is submarines. All right, these are the little white counters here, and you have two sides to them: a not in contact and a in contact. In contact is brighter and it has a little +1, and you have anywhere between 1 and 3 submarines. When you make the joint op diplomacy thing with Nimitz, that's going to determine how many submarines you get. In the April phase, if you have succeeded in setting up a joint op with him, you roll a die. On even, you get 3 subs. On odd, you get 2 subs. If you didn't succeed in the setting up a joint op with Nimitz, then it's going to be either 2 subs or 1 sub. Same thing, rolling even odd on it. My game, I ended up having 3, so yay, that works for me. You also place them on the board along with your markers, which I'll touch on here in just a sec. The submarines do not move. Once you place them, that's where they're going to be. So place them somewhere that's going to be advantageous for you. Think of them kind of like your footprint. All right, they're your recon in a way. They're patrols. But when they're out of contact, they're not drawing hazard markers, which you'll see here in a little bit. They're not doing anything for you. Now, when they are in contact, though, you have to draw hazard markers for them, even if your task force marker isn't in that C zone. So you have to be careful. They can make things harder on you. Now, for me, I'm putting 2 here with my planned point to rendezvous with the Enterprise task force. I definitely want that because I want the extra ships. I want the extra refueler. I want the defense that having an extra aircraft carrier is going to provide. Not to mention the fact that it's historically accurate. Watch the, what's it called? Battlefield 360 series. It's on history. I think you can pull it up on YouTube as well. Excellent series. It covers the USS Enterprise from the start of World War II throughout the Pacific campaign. And one of the episodes actually refers to when it met up with the Hornet to do the Doolittle raid. So it's definitely worth checking out. Anyway, the submarines will give you a +1 bonus if you have made contact with them. And so, for example, if my task force were here and I were attempting to rendezvous to get my bigger task force and all the extra ships, and I had contact with one of the subs, then I would get a +1 to my roll at that point. Now, the one that I put over here in Japan, over here on the far left, that one, for each round that I'm in contact with it, and the round ends, I get to take one of these little contact markers and put it in one of these cities on Japan, and it gives you a bonus to your roll there. So it's kind of like scouting the area before you get there. So that's something to consider. But this section has the hardest hazards. So for me, I don't try to actually make contact with that sub until I get over close to the end. I'll make 1 or 2 attempts to contact it. If I do and I get 1 bonus, 2 bonuses, great. If not, I don't let it worry me. But I don't want to play through the whole naval phase letting that thing stay in contact, because then it's drawing hazard after hazard, even though it's giving you a bunch of contact markers. So in essence, you would make your attack phase a lot easier, but you would make your naval phase a hell of a lot harder. Now, something else that you do place down are these 3 markers. And grab them up real quick. You have your planned RV point, your planned RV turn, and your planned launch point. Okay, that's when you're planning on launching your planes, planning on meeting up with the Enterprise, planning on and what turn you're thinking that you are going to meet up with the Enterprise. Each one of those give you a little bonus. I picked midway as my planned RV point. What that means is when you're making a rendezvous roll, you only roll 2 dice, except for when you're on top of this marker with your task force, then you roll 3. That's my absolute best chance to make contact with them and to have that go through. So I definitely want to have those 3 dice or that extra dice at the easiest point. If you take and look, let's zoom in a little bit so you guys can see it. That number there, RV11, and then you see it there, RV12, RV13. That's the number you need to roll equal to or higher to take and make contact. It's lowest right here at Influence East and Midway. So I picked the first one right there at Midway as my point. Again, as I said, you're getting a bonus for submarines and recon that you have in the area. If you happen to take and hit this point at the right turn, which you have marked, then you also get a bonus 3 on your roll. All right. So you definitely want to try to engineer it so you have your best chance to get your highest roll, because you want to get those ships. You went all the trouble of setting up diplomacy with them. You got to make that work. That's how rendezvous works. Your planned launch point is exactly what it says. It's your planned launch point. You can't launch before you get to that point unless it's an emergency launch, at which point you really don't want to do an emergency launch. You want to hit planned if at all possible. Also, you can't launch before Influence West, which is this little area, sea area. You'll see that when I do the playthrough, but it actually correlates. This sea area correlates to this flight area up here when they take off. So you can only launch from so far away without the planes having no chance to make it. The other part that I want to show you real quick, zoom in on it. This is the landing sites in China that I was referring to. The one for Russia is up there. It's the red one on the left. I actually did not get that one in this playthrough, but it's the one that you would use if you did a use diplomacy with Thompson and tried to have a landing zone in Russia. Once you pass a diplomacy check with Stilwell and you get him on your side, you can set up as many landing zones as you want in China. That's what these are here. The number, you've got a bunch of numbers on it. The top number of the 3 on the bottom. All right, so for example, this place here, Lishiyi, whatever it is, it's a number 8. You'd roll 2 die and you try to beat it. I ended up getting these top 3. Each month you can take and send 1 ground crew and 8 fuel, I think it is, to one of your landing zones. You also put a landing beacon in each one that you set up. So I was able to set up 3 landing zones. I've got fuel and ground crew in them. And when I refer to your event check that you have to do each month after you have a landing zone set up, this is the event check that I'm talking about. It's a very simple 2 dice roll. If you roll a certain point, it could cause a Japanese attack or storm or nothing. I lucked out and these 3 were fine, so had nothing happen with them. Nothing to worry about there. But that's what I was referring to when I was talking about landing zones, okay? Now, the basic gist of our naval turn, okay? As I was stating, your goal is to take your task force, which is going to start off with Your blue marker, your dark blue marker, that is simply the Hornet with its escort ships, which are down here. And the light blue one is after you make your rendezvous point. Take notice that it says fueled on one side and low fuel on the other. Both of them say that. I'll address that here in just a sec. I stack them on top of each other just for ease on the board. One other thing before I get going here, the little track here on the side is a phase marker for the naval part, and then up here is for flight. Now, as you're going along, again, I love how GMT did this. They've got each one of the turns, your planning turn, naval turn, flight turn, and attack turn, everything. They've got a little player aid right here with everything you need in it. Once you've got the rules down, you pretty much just walk through this. General quarters phase is pretty much your maintenance. This is when you're trying to adjust your recon, your combat air patrol, if you have it, which you won't until after you make a rendezvous. Your submarines, this is when you can make contact with a submarine or break contact with a submarine. So for example, if I had made contact with these two subs and made my rendezvous, the next turn I'm going to break contact with those because I don't need them anymore, and they'll just keep drawing hazards. So that's something to keep in mind. Once your subs have done what they need, break contact. Don't let them just sit there and keep hurting you. Also, if one of your ships has mechanical distress, this is the point at which you'll try to get rid of that. And you can also repair damaged B-25s if you have the right elite co-pilot, pilot, whatever it is. Weather phase. All right, when I refer to the weather phase, let's zoom in here real quick. You've got the part right here that says your weather check, and you can see that it marks down what areas of the map it refers to. It's very simple. It's 2 dice, and whatever number you roll is the weather that you're going to have. So for this first area, 2 to 7 is calm, 8 to 9 gusty, and so on. But if you look next to it, it says move. When you're doing your, what's it called, underway, that's your actual movement of your task force. When you're doing that part, you're again rolling 2 dice, and you have to beat that number to move your task force. As you can see, the worse the weather, the higher you have to roll. So you want to have good weather if at all possible. All right, it's the same way all the way across. Unfortunately, the majority of it, from here all the way to here, right up to China, or not China, Japan, is horrible. Only 2 to 4 is calm weather. 5 to 7 is gusty, and 8 to 10 is gale. So you've got decent weather over here at the left, and then a lot of crappy weather all the way to here. And then it actually goes back to decent there next to Japan. That kind of sucks. The launch phase is the next thing that you're going to concern yourself with. That will be done here at the planned launch. And the launch itself really isn't that hard. It's in the inside of your naval turn chart, and it's simply rolling 2 dice. If it's a planned launch, you look here at what type of weather you have, and that's what you have to beat. If it's an emergency launch, that's what you have to beat. So if it's an emergency, you're popping them early, you have to roll a little higher, and then you've got your botch takeoff checks, which I'll go over later on in this little video when I get to that point of it. So you're pushing along and you're going through this. You do your underway. Oh, before I get past the underway, you do your move check, right? Once you've moved, you can do something that's called a force move, where you take and you flip your task force over to its low fuel side and you push it forward another spot. It enables you to kind of force yourself along and to cover as much ground as possible, which you want to do, but you also have to be careful on your timing, because remember, your planned RV point is, on a certain turn, and I ended up hitting my planned RV point the last time I played this a turn early. I I've thought about actually moving that thing back up. Let's see, that's 4 turns, 1, 2. It depends on how well you do. Yeah, we'll move it up, see if it does better this time. I'll probably be late this time just because I did that. But you can do your force move. Now, however, when you're low fuel, you can't force move, and you can possibly hurt yourself when you're doing a raid move, which I'll tell you about here in just a sec. At the end of the naval turn, you see the last thing is refuel, okay? Each one of the task force has a refueling ship in it, this AO, and that 7+ on the right side means that you can refuel your task force. All you have to do is roll 7 or better and you beat it. The good part is if you rendezvous with the other carrier, the Enterprise, it has its own refueler, which is better, 6+, and you can make a check for each refueler that you have. So it makes it to where you can slam yourself across the board very quickly if you have, if you've rendezvoused, if you're hitting everything right. So you definitely want to burn your fuel, try to refuel it, and keep going as fast as you can because you don't want to get hit with these hazards. All right. Now a raid move, if you look right here, there's a red line. This is the international date line. If you are past the international date line, and let's see, yeah, you can attempt a raid move, and you can take, yeah, you have to have succeeded. Let me check and make sure on that real quick. Yeah, we'll pull up here in the book because I want to make sure I tell you guys the right thing. If the task force is west of the line and has already moved this phase, and there are no slow ships on the task force layout, you may attempt a raid move. To do so, perform an underway check again using the same procedure you did. If you succeed, you get to move another spot. If you don't succeed, you may force move the task force, but only if the task force is fueled. Now, the problem though is if you attempt to do a raid move and the task force is already on low fuel, if you fail that raid move, then the task force will turn around and it heads back for Pearl Harbor, which ends the naval phase, which effectively ends your game. So I would say don't attempt to raid move. Think of raid move as a second chance to move when you're past the red line, but you have to have already moved. So if you fail your underway check and you force move, you can try to raid move. I don't want to confuse you guys because just talking about it probably isn't sounding right. The basic gist is if you did move, you succeeded on your underway check, there's no reason not to attempt to raid move as well. You've got nothing to lose and you can still force move. But using a raid move, you could make up to 3 sea areas in a turn. You know, one for underway, one for raid, and force yourself if you want to. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, let's get back to a little talk through here. Next part that you got to worry about, and pretty much the last part, is hazards, which I'm going to zoom in on as well here. If you look here, the lettering shows you what you've got to worry about. These are your east hazard zones, all right? East hazards are your less dangerous, then you have central, then you have west. So basically, the closer you get to Japan, the worse they get. And you just literally have to read it out, and it tells you how many hazard markers you draw. In this first zone, you're going to draw a minimum of 1, plus 1 if you have failed a secrecy test up to this point, which would have happened during your planning phase. If you look over in the next section, you're going to draw a minimum of 2, and enemy signals, those are a hazard that can be on the board. It's one of the markers that you can draw, and they stay in the sea area itself. If there's one on the board, it adds another hazard. So basically, the hazards can compound themselves as you go. It's the same thing. All you have to do is look at it. Each one of these, all right, all the way down, you see that they change color, which I really like because the markers themselves are actually color coded as well. The east, central, and west hazards. You really, when you get over here to this section, right about in the middle, once you've made your rendezvous, you want to be slamming yourself forward as fast as you can, because you don't want to keep getting hit with these hazards, because they have the potential to have Japanese subs, Japanese aircraft carriers, and an airstrike come onto you. You can run into their merchant fleet, which was like fishing vessels that were kind of like patrol boats that will radio you in. Your ships can get damaged themselves. When you're drawing this first section, you have a good chance of drawing things like clouds, which is nothing. But you're going to have less of them in this central section and more dangerous hazards. And then very few clouds and a lot of dangerous hazards in this last section. So make sure you get down here as quick as you possibly can. Now, one thing to keep in mind is, say you draw a hazard that has increased your alert level and caused an airstrike. All right. If you look over here on your left, it tells you if alert level this, then it causes an airstrike. So it's got it printed right on the board what's going to cause an airstrike. You can read over this to understand the specifics. I'm not going to read it out to you guys. All right, but say your task force is down here. All right, and my launch point is there in the east, but I'm right here at Influence West. I'm in the farthest point that I could be to launch and actually still get my ships off. If I have a bad hazard that I don't want to face, something like an airstrike or something else, then I can go ahead and do an emergency launch right now, ending my naval turn and launching my aircraft themselves to get into the flight phase. Anytime once you hit Influence West and left of that, you can do an emergency launch prior to actually handling the result of the hazard that you drew. So if it's something really bad and it's going to tear your task force up, or it could possibly damage the Hornet, because if the Hornet gets damaged, that's it. You're game over. You can't launch aircraft with a damaged aircraft carrier. It forces you to turn around, so you definitely don't want that to happen at all costs. Go ahead and do your emergency launch. You're going to be worse off. Fewer of your aircraft are going to get off, but at least you'll get aircraft off. And honestly, that's it. That's the basics of it. It is literally walking down your sequence of play here, and it's not that bad. The one thing that throws me off is the launch is prior to underway. So I could take and be here and then I move into my launch point, but I have to wait another turn before I can actually launch. So I end up having to take some more hazards. I think they put it that way on purpose, but that burned me on a couple games previously. I was like, no, come on, just let me launch already. All right, I think that covers everything. Let me zoom in one more thing here, actually, while I'm thinking of it, and show you. This is your little chart of where your ships go. And the basic way to think about this is, if the counter will fit with another counter in it, you can put a ship there, okay? So like those will fit because they're within the lines, all right? And the only thing that can go in the center is your carriers and your refuelers. It even says it right there. And this is kind of like a little tactical map that if you draw a hazard that's a enemy sub, or what are those things called? There's something else. I-boat is one, and then it's a bomber air attack. Yeah, the torpedo bombers, the airstrikes, the pink lines, arrows are your airstrikes, and then the dark green ones here to the side are the enemy submarines coming in to attack your fleet. Now on the left, oops, sorry about bumping that, you see local recon. I have my float plane that's launched from one of my cruisers. I have that put into local recon because it gives me a little bonus. You can put your recon out onto the naval map, onto other sea areas, but I found that increases the amount of hazards that I'm drawing, so I don't really like to do that. But it does show you more what's going on. Basically, it's like I was saying earlier, it increases your footprint of what's out there on the board, but it gives you a better idea of what is out on the board. So it's a hit or miss. For me, I just take the ships of the light blue, the Enterprise Task Force, and I set them here for when I actually get them. You just meld them in there, and you want to try to kind of spread them around so they'll cover your carriers when you actually get started at it. You don't want to have open spots. With just the blue task force, you can't cover every area. So you have to keep that in mind. All right, that's the basic gist. Droned on a little longer than I anticipated, but that's the basic gist of how you cover your naval turn. Now I'm going to get ready and do a quick playthrough of it and let you guys see how that works. All right, welcome back if you're sticking around for the playthrough part of this game. So you'll be able to see how my task force fares as we push through our naval turn and try to, get everything going on. Now, this starts the general quarters phase, which I'm actually not going to do a lot because I've just got my little local recon here that I'm putting in my local recon box, which I'll leave it there. But I am not going to activate any of my submarines yet because, like I stated in the other, go over the rules, this will start the hazards being drawn here, and I don't want to draw hazards here yet. It's going to be kind of close because when I played through this before, for some reason, I never seem to be able to get these submarines in contact, but I'm going to run the risk, and I'll start trying to contact them on the following naval turn and just hope for the best at that point. Now we go into our weather part, right? That's where I'm at right here. I'm only rolling for this one section. Now, FYI, this first little section here, when you're on the Pacific coast, if you fail your underway move, it doesn't matter. The task force is still going to take and move down into this box. It's the only time you're going to move automatically, and then you can force move over into the next box if you like. But we're going to do our weather check and see what the weather is for this area, which is a 6, so the weather is calm. I'll take and grab one of our little calm things, and you're going to put it right there just like that. The weather is going to change each round of the naval turn. And like I said, if you take and move forward into a sea area that you don't have a weather marker in, or you put recon in one of those areas, then you're going to take and roll your roll for weather just like it was the weather phase. Now, at this point, we would do our underway check because technically I'm still up here at the coast. Since the weather is calm, I need a 5 or better to move, which I got with a 6, so that drops a dice. I play games all the time, and I only drop stuff when I'm on camera. You guys know how it is. Alright, so I'm here in this spot, but I don't want to end in that spot. I want to take and get forward as quick as I can. All it's going to do is give me another hazard. My alert level is 0, so I wouldn't get not my alert level, my failed secrecy test. I haven't failed any yet, so my I would only be drawing one hazard. Well, that's one hazard I don't have to draw if I can avoid it. So I'm going to flip myself to low fuel and move over and do a force move. At this point, I do have to roll for weather for this area since I don't have weather there yet. So let's take and see what the weather is. Hopefully it'll be low as well. And it's a 9. 9 on this is gusty, so it's not too bad. That's just the backside of the column marker, which we'll take and move. Unfortunately, 9 in the next sea area is a gale, which is a lot worse. So now we've done our general quarters, our weather. We could launch if we were at that point, which we're not yet. We did our underway. I can't raid move because I'm not past the international date line, the red line there. Now we go to our hazard phase. In this area that I'm in, make sure I'm not throwing my markers around over here. I'm drawing 2 hazards minimum of 1 if it's a storm. So actually, if the weather's real bad, it will reduce the amount of hazards you draw in these east areas. So that's kind of nice. There are no enemy signals on the map, so I'm just drawing a flat 2 hazard markers. Let me grab my little opaque cup here and grab me a couple of markers. And you take and attach them to things. For example, if I had the recon in the sea area instead of local, then I would be attaching one of these hazards to the recon and one to the task force. You kind of spread it out evenly amongst what's in the sea area that you're drawing for. Again, my submarines are not in contact, so I don't have to draw for any of those, and the recon is local. So let's flip these over and see what I got. That's not good. And this one is okay. This one's not bad. This is cloud, all right, which means nothing. So that's actually a good thing. And this is something that gets attached to a ship. It basically is mechanical distress, and that little A in the bottom right of it means it gets attached to a ship. So let's take and pan this down, and I'll show you guys what it does. All right, camera, pan down for me. Take and move one of your ships. I'll just take and move this back one, and you attach it to the ship, and it slows it down. And then you have to beat the roll, which is this one is a 5+, to repair the ship and move it back up into its normal spot. This makes it to where it's vulnerable to enemy submarines. If I was to be attacked by an enemy submarine now, they would gun for this destroyer and try to take it out. Let's hope you guys don't see that, because I don't want to lose it. All right, let's zoom back in a little bit up here. All right. Tripod's arguing with me today. Okay, so that takes care of our hazard section that we're at now. We've done our hazards, so now we just do our refueling. And I have my AO, which you guys can't see because I got panned up, but I need to roll a 7 or higher. I am definitely hoping I do that on this, because that will allow me to move another 2 spaces on the next turn, and I can get up to here and not have to worry about extra hazards. So let's take and roll it. Come on, refuel. Nope, 6. So I'm not refueling. That's unfortunate. Next turn I can just make my underway. I won't be able to do a force move. Now at this point, our little weather markers, let me bring these over here actually so I don't have to keep reaching in front of the camera. Alright, they come off the board and you re-roll for weather when you get to that phase. So we're back to our general quarters, and you move your naval turn marker down 1. This is unfortunate. That puts me at 2 turns away, so I have to make this move and refuel if I'm going to take and hit the planned RV point at the right point. This my last game, I slammed through and it was like hit, and I was hitting it the whole way through, and I ended up getting there a turn early and didn't have my extra bonus that I wanted. So watch it. This turn I'm going to be 1 turn late. That's how it always is. Alright. I'm going to wait, since I didn't get my refuel. I'm going to wait 1 more turn. Should I wait 1 more turn? Yeah, we'll wait 1 more turn on the submarine and see how that goes. So let's roll for our weather. Oh, excuse me. General quarters phase is where I do my mechanical distress, so I'm going to try to remove that one that I got the hazard on the previous turn. I need a 5 or better to do that. That'll definitely take care of that. So my destroyer is fixed. Throw that little hazard away. Now we're going to take and do our weather phase again, just for the area that we're in. See what kind of weather we got. We've got a 9, which again is that gale. So we'll pop that up there. Oh, was this the wrong one? Gusty, calm, No, it's gusty. Excuse me. So we'll throw that right there. Now, took care of our weather. Again, we're not up to the launch part, so we can do our underway check. We're at gusty, so I need a 6+ to move. All right, so come on, 6 or higher, because I have to make this, and I have to refuel at the end of this turn if I'm going to be able to get there. All right, that got it. All right, so I beat it. I needed a 6+. I got the 10. It's right down here. I'm gonna back this out a little bit. I zoomed it in a little too much, I think. I needed to hit it right here on this chart. So I'm going to move to there. And like I said, I have to do my weather check for the area that I'm in, which is a calm. No, that's actually a different weather area. Nope, that is gusty as well. See, you got to have 4 or under to get calm from here all the way over to right before Japan. That's unfortunate. I'd much rather have that 2 to 7 all through this area. Okay. Anyway, can't do a raid move, and I can't do a force move because of the low fuel. So now I'm back to my hazards. So I have to draw 2 more hazards at this point. And it's not stormy. There are no enemy signals on the map. I'm really hoping I don't get any of those because I don't want to increase it. Let's take and draw from my little cup here and see what we get. I'll throw a couple of those down. We got another clouds, so that's excellent. That's nothing. And we got metals, okay, which is also good because that's effectively nothing as well. So both of those ended up being nothing to worry about, so we ended up lucking out big time as far as hazards were concerned this go around. But we're drawing those good ones, so I don't know how much longer those good ones are going to last. Now we're back down to our refuel. We definitely have to get the refuel. You guys are watching this, pray for the refuel, because if we don't, I'm going to be a turn late on my rendezvous. There it is, we got it. Got the 11, so I can flip myself over to fueled, which means next turn I can move and, well, yeah, next turn if I move and force move, yep, that'll put me there for the next rendezvous check. I'll be right there when I need to be. Now, I can do rendezvous checks. You can do up to 2 each round, but right now it's 13 plus for me to do a rendezvous check, rolling 2 dice with only a +1, so I'd have to roll a perfect 12 to get it. That's not going to happen, or that's very unlikely to happen. The next area is a 12, and I could roll 11 or 12 to get it. However, each time you fail doing a rendezvous check, you increase your security risk by 1. So it's not worth it unless you know you're going to get it. Don't take those security risks lightly. Here, I will absolutely take both if I happen to fail and not get it. All right, so let's take and grab our weather markers up here. We're back to our general quarters phase. And now I'm going to try to make contact with my submarines. Both of them are, again, a 7+. You do this during your general quarters phase. You can make or attempt to make contact or break contact, and breaking contact is automatic. So for our top one here, Trout, nope, no contact. See, this is what I knew was going to happen. I would take and wait too long and I wouldn't have contact with them. But I'll have one more chance to make contact with them before I do my next rendezvous check, or do this rendezvous check rather. And for the Thresher, look at Snake Eyes, you gotta be kidding me. Those of you who have watched me play before know the dice hate me. So, alright, that is the general quarters phase done. Now we're going to do the weather phase. Had I made contact with one of these, I would have been making a weather check there as well. Since I didn't, it's just for the area that I'm in. Hopefully it'll be low. No, it's a 10, which is a gale. So that's bad. That means I need a 7+ to move. And I needed this move to be a definite. Yeah, because if I move, if I have to force move, that's bad. Yeah, because if I just force move to there, then I can't get into that one on the next turn. So I'd be missing that +3 bonus for getting there on that. So we'll have to see what happens. Now we're on our underway part. I am going to be doing a force move because I am fueled up. I guarantee you that. Come on, 7 or better so I can make my move. And I'm looking at this weather chart and move check chart, not this one at this point, because I am over here. Okay? So 7 or better, 7 or better. Cross your fingers, 7 or better. There we go, 8. That was close, we made it. Now I can do my force move. I need to do the weather check for this area because I just got there, but it doesn't matter because I'm going to be going here. And the weather is calm here. Now, here's the thing though, actually, that I was just looking at. If you may do so before, after, or okay. Your rendezvous check can be done before, after, or before and after your underway check, basically your movement. So if I force move, I can do rendezvous checks here now. So I could have up to 4 rendezvous checks in this area. I think I'll go ahead and do that. I'll just force move and I'll go ahead and do one now to see if I can do it. I'd be rolling 3 dice with a +1, shooting for an 11. I'll just make 1 check at it and hope for the best. But see, this puts me in the central area now, so I have that to worry about. All right, I will make my, oh, and 1 more space and I can start making raid moves, so you guys can see how quickly you can slam yourself across if you do it. But I probably should have been trying to make contact with these guys earlier. All right, oh, let me do my weather check for my area real quick. 8 is another gale. Of course it is. I'll just take this one because I don't need it over there anymore. Let me make sure, yeah, you guys can see the dice from there. All right, now I'm gonna make 1 rendezvous check while I'm here before I do my hazards to hopefully go ahead and get them. Unfortunately, I'm not getting any of my bonuses for these guys, and I don't get my +3 for the next turn, but I will get it next turn if I fail this one. So your rendezvous check is listed here. It has all the little bonuses that you can get. You get penalized if your task force was delayed or if it's a storm. This is what I'm talking about, that being the planned turn gives me a +3, and that's not until the next turn, and +1 for each recon and submarine in contact. Now, the one other thing you can do is break radio silence, which is anywhere between 1 and 5 points that you can just arbitrarily add to your roll. So say that I rolled and I got a 9 with everything added to it, all my modifiers, and I need an 11. I can effectively choose to add 2 to it to make it 11 and pass it, but it adds to my security risk however many points I add to it. So it's kind of like balancing out your opening communications and radioing out, and the Japanese are listening. So I'm going to make 1 check here, 3 dice because of where it's located. This is our planned point. So I need a 10 since I've got a +1 to get this. So let's roll high so I don't have to worry about it, and I can just keep slamming myself forward. I think I got it. I did. That is an 11, so I got a 12. So I went ahead and got my Rendezvous. Look at that. Hold on one sec while I get the pieces moved. Alright, you guys can see I've added my ships down here to it. It's all the light blue ships of the Enterprise Task Force. And I flip over my task force to the Task Force 16. Alright, the light blue one. And down here at the bottom are the ships of the Enterprise. Alright, there's one VF, which is a fighter group, 6, which I put in Cap High, which is Combat Air Patrol High. The rest of them I kept in the hangar. I could put them out in the sea area as an extra patrol if I wanted to, but these areas that I'm in, each time I have something like a sub or a patrol in that sea area with me, it adds extra hazards. I don't want those extra hazards, so I'm going to leave them in the hangar. If something like an airstrike did happen to occur against me, then I could potentially launch them as long as nothing bad happened. You know, I didn't have any bad effects against them and possibly take out their guys. Now, with all the extra ships, I've got full coverage around my aircraft carriers. I set it up kind of like they would in real life, where they've got the destroyers on the perimeter, then they've got the heavier ships going on in. In this, you just have your destroyers and cruisers. So destroyers on the outside as much as possible, then my cruisers kind of inside that. And then in the center, my 2 CVs and my 2 refueling ships are right there in front of them. Now I can attempt to refuel twice each turn thanks to having 2 refueling ships. So that's excellent. I'll take and definitely make use of that to slam myself as fast as possible across here. I did get lucky by making this rendezvous roll early and without having any of the submarines, but that also means I don't have to worry about activating them, but I could have had them in Japan for extra contacts to make the attack phase easier. So yeah, it's a trade-off. I like to make sure that I get the rendezvous at all costs, and I was willing to spend a couple of submarines to ensure that. And actually next turn is supposed to be my turn to meet up with them. Now we've got that covered. We're down to the hazard phase, and it's actually kind of good that I ended up not meeting up with these guys, because I get 1 hazard and then +1 per patrol, and then plus the alert level. Your alert level you're keeping track of over here. There's a handful of things that'll raise your alert level, like hazards. Certain hazards will raise it. Failing security tests, some security checks will raise it. It just depends on which ones. And there's a few things you can do in the planning phase. I'm not going to go over all of them that'll cause that, but there is a little marker here that you keep track of it, and it's this number across the top. You've got 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4 up here. When you get up to alert level 4, you actually can start ending up having to make extra event checks over here that can take out some of your landing fields. So you have to be careful about that. So my alert level's there, which is a 0 at the moment. So I'm doing good as far as that's concerned. I just have to draw 1 hazard here. It would actually be less than that if the weather was worse. So nothing to worry about at this point. Let's take and grab it. I've got a different container for my hazards here, and let's grab this down, throw it down. As I said, you can see that this matches up with, well, the other side of it will match the color of these hazards, the central hazards attached to my task force. Okay, this is a signal, all right, enemy signal. The thing that was being, actually, it's good that I drew it here, because enemy signals are a little worse to draw there at the previous area. These things, if they have one of the secrecy test symbols on it, this one doesn't, but if it had one of those triangles, square, or circle symbols in the bottom corner of it, you would have to make a secrecy test, which could possibly raise your alert level, or it would absolutely raise your security risk. So that's something to be careful of. Something else is if you have these enemy signal markers next to each other, they start taking away your secrecy value. So you know how I can roll right over here. I can roll 7 dice for my security risk right now, which is great. If I got another one of those next to it, I lose one of those dice. And then if another one popped up next to it, I'd lose another dice. And then it keeps going on. If you ended up having signals all the way across, you could lose all your damn dice. So that's something to definitely keep in mind. And like I said, when you're first doing this, you want to make sure and take... Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to bump the camera. Use the book when you're going over your security or the hazards. Let me find the spot that references that. Where's it at? Destroy the boat, flying boat, enemy. Okay, right here, enemy signals. It goes into a lot more detail on the in the actual rulebook itself. The if I can get the damn thing to pop up. The player aid tells you pretty much everything that you need to know, but when you're first doing it, make sure you read it out of the rulebook as well as to show yourself any of the smaller little things that you have to that you might miss. Oh yeah, the moment a sea area has 2 or more signal hazards, increase the security risk by 3, a third, and that's in the same area. So if I had 2 signals in that area instead of next to each other, and then if 3 adjacent sea areas have signal hazards, lower the secrecy value by 1 die. 4 adjacent, lower it another die, etc. You know, and it keeps going on. So you definitely want to make sure you avoid that if possible. And these are some of the other things that you can have happen in the sea. You got boats, which were their little like merchant fishing vessels that were radioing into them. Clouds, which are nothing. The enemy signals, which we just talked about. And that little symbol there is the one I'm talking about that causes a secrecy test. Flying boat, I-boat, which is like their submarine, so that can actually attack your task force. The mechanical distress you've already seen. And this one is a special mechanical distress that can actually lower your chances of making the rendezvous. So that's something to be careful of. And then this one's like one of their warships down over here, and it triggers a secrecy test. Anyway, sorry for holding you up. Just going over a couple of those real quick. We did our hazard. We're doing our refueling. I'll roll for the Sabine first, which is a 6+ instead of 7+. Hopefully this will work. All right, we got it. So we are refueled again. And now we get back around to general quarters. I'm debating, do I... Okay, because when I underway this turn, let me move these, I can take, and technically I can get to my launch point this turn. If I underway, raid move, and force move, I can get to my planned launch point this turn. So that would be something interesting. I'd like to probably see that happen, because that's less hazards I'm having to draw, less chances for my security risk to go up, less chances for enemy ship to see me, and everything is to symbolize what would happen, like less chances for the enemy merchant ships to see you, or a submarine to spot you and radio home, because this mission, the entire mission, was all about secrecy. I'm serious. Watch that documentary. It's awesome. You'll definitely get a kick out of it if you're into this stuff. All right. I'm going to take a risk since I haven't contacted a submarine yet, and contact that one since I can possibly end the naval phase this turn, and see if I can get that one going. And 6. What do you know? I swear that die was going to be higher, but let me pull this down so you guys can see a little better. The second die coming down hit it and knocked it into a 1. So, oh well, not getting the sub. Weather phase. Let's take and see what our weather is going to be here. Our weather is, of course, is going to go high. 10 again. That's gale. That's not good. At least it's not a storm. I can deal with anything but a storm, because if it storms, I have to hold up, because you do not want to launch in a storm for any reason. It is too high. Really, I need calm weather, but I don't think that's going to happen. Okay, we did our weather phase. We're not at our launch point, so let me pull it back up. We're not at our launch point. Now we're underway. A gale is 7 plus. Now, since I'm not past this line, if I don't make this underway check, then I can't raid move this turn. Well, I could if I force moved and then tried to raid move, but I'm not going to do that because that's too big of a risk of ending my game completely. And I need the game to go on so I can film the later turns for you. Okay, so I need a 7 or better to take and get moving. 3. No! I got held up. Okay, we're just going to take and force move once. We're going to flip ourselves over to low fuel. We're going to leave it at that, and I'm going to have to just try to refuel at the end of this round and wait another turn to take and get going. Let's do our weather check there. That messed me up. I needed to get moving. Alright, weather is a 6. 6 is gusty. I can deal with gusty. Gusty ain't bad. Gusty's a cool dude, man. Alright. Our central hazards, since that's what we're at here, hazard phase, we've got 1 hazard plus 1 for each patrol. Outside of this, the local patrol doesn't count towards that. Plus our alert level, which our alert level is 0 at the moment, so we're drawing 1 hazard. Let me almost fell down there. Draw a hazard. I am hoping I can deal with anything as long as it's not a signal. I don't care if it's a ship or a boat or a plane or some of that shit, but just do not be one of those signals. And we got clouds. I have drawn so many clouds this game, which means during my flight phase I'm going to get crushed. Those of you who are watching my Fields of Fire playthrough saw that when I had the best modifiers possible, my guy still got crushed. Alright, we're going to do our refueling phase here real quick. Trying for 6 or better here. Definitely got it. So we're fueled up. Alright, now we're back to that. Now, had I made contact with this submarine, previous turn I could have contact markers going up there at the top there at Japan. Those little red squares up there. I could be putting the contact markers on it and increase my likelihood at that point of succeeding. Unfortunately, I didn't make contact, which I am going to attempt now. Had I, and like I said previously, had I made contact with these guys on the previous turns, now that I no longer need them, I would have broken contact with them. So, since I'm not worried about my recon, and I have no mechanical distress, I am going to take an attempt to make contact with the submarine, try to get them to help me out and get a little recon going. Alright, we got it. 11. So, when I draw hazards this turn, I'm going to have to be drawing hazards in this area. Ooh, wait. Damn, I didn't even see that. I missed that. I thought it was 2 hazards. It's 4 hazards in that area. Ooh. I tell you what, for a +1 bonus, I don't need it. I'm going to flick that back over. We're going to say no on that one because nope, I do not want to risk drawing 4 hazards right there on top of Japan. Not when I'm so close to my launch point. The +1 bonus later on, I just don't see as worth it. It's not going to be worth it if, say for example, another submarine or ship or airstrike or something hit this, whatever it is, it just destroys the submarine. But if it increased my alert level and then other hazards increased it on my task force and ended up causing an airstrike, it could really ruin my game up until this point. It's not worth the risk of the bonus. So we're just going to say to hell with him and not worry about it. So the submarine wasn't too good for me. All right, we're done with that phase. We're going to our weather phase, see what our weather is. This would be a great time to get calm, but my launch point is here. So it really doesn't matter because the weather only covers these 2 squares. So let's see what we get. Although calm will help me move. No, it's a damn storm. I have to move now, and moving is going to be hard. Where is it? Storm. Alright. I'll tell you what. This is the one thing I don't get in the game, is when you hit your launch point and you get to your launch phase, you must make your launch. It's in the instruction book, it says must attempt to make your launch, but they wouldn't attempt to launch in a storm. You're just going to wreck all your planes at that point. So anyway, that's just me venting. I'm hoping not to have a storm there as well, because that will just wreck so many of my planes. Let me show you. When you're doing your launch, if it's even just a planned launch in a storm is a 9+. If you fail that, then it becomes a botched takeoff, and you have another roll to do, and you could end up with damaged planes. You could end up with them crashed on the runway and destroying the aircraft carrier and turning around. It could really mess up your day. Alright, so let me see where I'm at. Video is probably about 45 minutes by now. Yeah, we should have enough time to get through this and keep it at about an hour. I am done with the weather phase. I'm not launching. I'm underway. Since it's a storm, unfortunately, I'm not going to make a move this turn, more than likely, because I need to roll 10 or higher, which means I can only take and force move, but I can do that after I attempt to raid move. Alright, that was a 6. That came out to an 8, so that's not enough. I will attempt to raid move to see if I can do it, because if I do make the raid move, I can force move into that one. God, if I hadn't got the storm, I would have moved there and I could hit my launch on the next turn and just have one hazard. Alright, come on. I need 10 or higher. 10 or higher, baby. No, I got a 4. So that's crap. Alright, we'll low fuel it and go to that. And again, we're having to draw a hazard. Let's see what we get here. Come on. No whammy, no whammy, no whammy, no whammy. And our hazard is, throw it down. It is a slowed ship. I have to attach this to one of my ships. I'll just put it on this destroyer. That's not bad. I can deal with a slow ship because that's not going to affect me that bad. And I did, like I said, I canceled that. I'm not drawing 4 hazards for that submarine. It's not worth the contact marker. That had been a mistake on my part. I must have looked in this box instead of that box on the hazard markers. All right, let's attempt to refuel again. So at least next turn I know no matter what, if I refuel, I can pop over there and get to my launch phase. All right, 6 or better. Yep, got it. So we're fueled. Okay, that takes care of that. Now we're done with our storm markers. We're back to our general quarters phase. There's nothing that I need to adjust as far as recon's concerned. I will just attempt to remove this one marker, which you can see is a 6+. So I need a 6+ to take this ship out of the astern far, which, by the way, I forgot to mention, is the only place a slow ship can go. If one of your ships gets damaged or has this hazard on it, that's the only place it can go. All right, so 6+. It is, oh, that was going to be a 7 and it tipped on it. So that stays. Still got a slow ship. We'll put that there. And our weather, which hopefully our weather will be good, which it's not going to matter because I'm going into that box at this point anyway, and I will have to do a weather check. 7. 7 is gusty. That's what I really need for the next box. All right, now we're at our launch phase. Unfortunately, it's going to take another turn because I'm not in the spot that I need to be, so I need to underway. Last turn really screwed me up with that storm. It slowed me down. Okay, gusty is 6+. Will move us. I won't have to worry about fueling them up. But if I do it, let's say I move and then raid move and then force move, I could get all the way on top of Japan, but I would have to draw 4 hazard markers this turn, and I really just do not want to draw those hazard markers because that's so much risk involved. I don't know, because remember, like I said, the closer you get here, the farther you start up here. The less of this you have to go through, the less fuel you'll be using. But if I pass this move check and then just force move, I could be 1 away. I'd be in defense west, and defense west starts at a minimum, if you guys can see, right here. Okay, so the farthest back I would be right here. I'd skip 2 areas. So yeah, I'll take an attempt to do that. Hopefully I'll make this move. 6 or better. Come on, make this 6. Okay, we'll attempt to raid move since I'm past the international date line, and see if I can do that, and a force move, at which point I'll just have to draw, well, I'll have 2 hazards here. Yeah, I'll have 2 hazards here and just 1 hazard here, but it still gets me closer, so still do that. So attempting the raid move, 1 extra hazard isn't bad. Okay, we got the raid move. Got a 10, so that got us there, and we'll force move ourselves over 1 more. Okay, so now you guys have seen it. I've slammed myself across. As far as the hazards go, I got ungodly lucky as they were concerned, but very bad luck as far as my submarines were concerned, because with the exception of 1, I failed those across the board. Now we've got 1 more hazard phase to deal with. We can attempt to refuel, but that's not really going to affect us because we're not worried about moving anymore. And I guess this is why they put launch before underway, because if I had 1 more turn, yeah, I'd absolutely slam myself forward 1 more space and then launch. But as it is, if I want to get closer to Japan, I have to wait another round. It makes you eat the hazards by forcing yourself forward. So I guess that makes sense. All right, let me grab, I got the west hazards tucked over here to the side, so let me grab some of those real quick and see what we got here. I needed 2. I got the 2. Let's draw this. We got, okay, this is another signal marker, and this one also doesn't have the security check, so this isn't going to hurt us as long as another one doesn't pop up here. If this is a signal marker as well, our security risk is going to go up by 3. Ha! I think there's only 1 clouds in the defense, or in the west thing. I ended up pulling it, so all right, that takes care of that. We are back to refueling, and I'll attempt to do it just to do it 6 or better. Let me pull it down a little bit since I'm not over in and 6, so we got it. And I'm definitely not going any farther. We're just going into our launch phase. Okay, now that effectively ends the naval phase, but I do need to do my weather because I need to know what the weather is for the launch itself. The launch has to be good weather, so I need a low roll here. 6. I can deal with a 6. A 6 puts me at gusty. That's probably the best I can hope for, really. So, oh, and I meant to pull this one off. Now, I went ahead, and let me show you guys here real quick, and organized all my planes into flights. They're already up there. This is actually the point that you would do that. It's marked out on the board here, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th flights. You know, top to bottom, those little markers there, right there, are what you're actually moving across the board. You can have anywhere between 2 and 4 B-25s in each flight. No less than 2, no more than 4. You can see I've got my elite pilots and elite crew members kind of spread out on there. And then there at the top, I've got stacks of fuel for each flight, because when you actually start moving them across, you put the fuel on the flight marker itself to keep track of how much fuel each flight has. Because if they start here at the farthest back spot, they actually lose one fuel right off the bat. But anyway, I've got them there, and you start with your first flight. As you're going, let me back this back up here. You start with your first flight, and you roll on it. And so I don't waste time, since I'm already approaching an hour. I'm just going to do the first one, since I've already got my weather. I've already got everything that I need as far as the naval phase is concerned. The naval's done. I'm doing my launch. The only way the naval would have anything else happen with it is if I had a catastrophe, like a botch takeoff, and it screwed something else up, and it caused, because let's see, 3 here. If you have a botch takeoff, you roll a 3. The remaining flights are delayed by 1 flight turn. That can end up actually holding you up here as well, and you end up having to play out a naval turn and then a flight turn. I'm not going to get into all that, because that'll take me a little while. I'll do the majority of these flights off camera, but I'll do the first one on camera just so you can see how it works. Now, I'm going on gusty, because that's the weather that I've got, which means I need a 6+, but I do get a bonus of elite pilots. Now, it's pilots only, okay? Some of these little markers are not pilots, and it's really easy to tell which ones are which, because they say pilot on them. So if it's a pilot, then yeah, you get the +1 bonus for the flight. If it's not, then you don't. So keep that in mind. I've got, I think, 3 that actually get a +1 bonus, including the first one. So the first one, I only need a 6 or better to get them off. Excuse me, I almost forgot. I'm getting ahead of myself here. When you do this, when you're starting your flight, you need to figure out where they're going to take off from. And I got lucky, because I got all the way here to Defense West. And let me zoom in up there so you guys can see it. Right up there, you can see Defense West, right? So there's Defense West 1, 2, and then Defense West 3, 6. So this is the farthest back that I can actually spawn in at. Basically, this is the farthest back my flights will start. First flight takes off, they're going to end up right there. If I got one more space closer, I could have been right to here, being right on top of Japan. You're using less fuel and all that other good stuff. But at this point, you're going to roll 1 die on a 1 or 2. I'm going to have this one on a 3 through 6. I'm going to have this one. And then you can see at the bottom, they've got their hazards and everything, flight hazards. But I'll cover that in the next video, because I'm already getting long-winded here. So let's back it back out, go down. All right, and let's hope for a 1 or 2. Roll low on this one so I can get 1 more space forward. 2, outstanding. We're starting in the forward spot of Defense West, which means we only have to go a couple of spaces to be right on top of Japan. So we're doing well here. All right, now let's take and do our first launch. It's going to be, like I said, I've got a +1 for having an elite pilot in my first flight there. A 5 or better, since the weather is gusty, unfortunately. Calm would have been better, but I'll take gusty over storm. All right, come on. 5 or better. You got to be kidding me. You got to be kidding me, because that bumped that damn thing, and it's done it every time. All right. For ease of time, because I don't want to have to go through all this, we're going to say that was a 5. All right, so they took off. I would take and place them on Defense West and put their fuel markers on them to represent them being on the board. Now, to keep the game state fair, that's the first flight I've got them on the board with their fuel markers. And that's purely for me to save time. The second flight I'll take and roll for them as a botched takeoff. And the way that would work is as the same as everything else, you roll 2 dice and you consult the chart. You get your modifier, and oh, actually, I don't think the elite pilot. No, the modifier does work for that. All right. Anyway, and this shows you what happens. The best you can hope for on a botched takeoff, which, like I said, I'll apply to the second flight for time purposes off camera, is the Navy shuts off the fuel valve and you consume 1 fuel. That's the least damaging thing that can happen to you on a botched takeoff. All right, so that's where we're at this point. I will take and run out the rest of these flights, second through 6. Every one of them has 3 B-25s. All the B-25s might not make it. Hopefully they do. You guys will find out when I do the flight turn itself, which actually doesn't look like it'll be too long since I'm starting up here. I'm hoping I don't get any delays that affect the naval segment, but it shouldn't have any bad issues. That, for the most part, is how the naval phase is run. You just draw your hazards. The hazards are the big things, and like I said, the easiest way to do that is to make sure the first few times you're doing it is pull out the book and read over the hazard in the book to make sure you're not missing any little details, because it's quite easy to do, especially in some of your earlier games with it. The one big thing that I didn't cover as far as the naval segment is concerned is the airstrike itself. There is a big player aid here. It's one of the tri-fold out player aids, and it covers the airstrike start to finish. All right, there's 6 phases to an airstrike. It would take a long time to do it, and I don't want to have the video take another half hour to explain it. You literally just start at airstrike and walk your way through if you have one happen, and you have to have been rendezvoused with the Enterprise to be able to have a counter strike launch against their airstrike. All right. Anyway, that's it for this video. I will the flight turn on the next video for you guys. You guys take care. I'll see you in the next one.